Hey everybody, welcome back to Around the Emirates podcast with Sara Mousa, where I speak to guests from across UAE about topics you want to hear about. Today, I am honored to be joined by the amazing Asiya Ali. Hi, Asiya.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, I invited Asiya to be on the show today because she is an incredible person. She is a Dubai born and raised Pakistani expat with a multi-award winning digital creative agency, MKV. I'd love to hear about your story and what got you started.
Okay, thank you for the lovely introduction, Sarah, and for taking out the time on a weekend. First of all, I would like to say I absolutely love what you're doing and the passion you have for sharing impactful stories around the Emirate. And I'm excited for the conversation today.
Go ahead, tell me your story.
Okay, so with MKV Digital, I founded MKV Digital in 2018 as a social media and influencer marketing agency. The goal was to fill the gap in the Middle East region, especially when it comes to, I think, influencer marketing. That was still something clients and brands would hesitate spending on.
Mm.
Today, we operate in the UAE and the KSA region. We serve clients mainly in the GCC region, but also globally. Like you mentioned, we have beautiful campaigns and some award-winning work that we are very proud of. And our services have expanded more digital, a little bit of PR solutions as well, but the core remains social media and influencer marketing. In 2024, we launched our Creators Hub as we saw a rising need for user generated content and authentic storytelling. And I'm sure this is something that everybody did have noticed as well. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. We work with a lot of younger talent who want to become creators and get an opportunity to work with some of the biggest names from the region as well. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what MKB Digital does and where we are today.
That is so cool. I love the fact that you found a gap in the market and you were like, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of this. And as obviously an entrepreneur yourself, with that entrepreneur mindset, you thought, I'm going to see what I can do to fill this gap and service my customers the best possible way. But obviously, as one of the only Pakistani female expats in the UAE that is running this kind of a company, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges and how did you overcome them?
I'm not too sure if I'm the only Pakistani in the industry, and I think this is an interesting chat that I had with a friend or a colleague in the industry, and it was very surprising for us to actually talk about that. And we couldn't think of a single Pakistani woman who's actually running a digital marketing agency. But when it comes to challenges, I think our industry comes with a lot of challenges because it is ever evolving. It's extremely competitive. I can talk about many challenges, but if I have to pick one, being an entrepreneur, I would say there are a lot of personal challenges as an entrepreneur. In my opinion, if you're a true entrepreneur, the biggest challenge any entrepreneur has is knowing themselves, especially in the start when you operate with a small team. You want to take care of it all by yourself. You're trying to build something. Um, and I think if you don't know yourself, you don't know your triggers, you don't know how to manage them, it can become quite challenging. How do I overcome it is by, and I think what it taught me was to know myself better, have hobbies, have passions other than work. Most importantly, knowing why am I doing what I'm doing. And I think what tops it all is a lot of patience, resilience, empathy.
I think it's really beautiful that you're starting with yourself before thinking about anything else in your company. You have to think about yourself, get to know yourself better, your approach. What are the best ways for you to make sure that you're doing okay and that your health and well-being is a priority, in addition to being able to run your company and give your clients the best of the best? Because at the end of the day, you can't run your company and give your clients award-winning services unless you yourself know what you're doing, you're comfortable with what you're doing, comfortable in your own skin with what you're doing. And I think it's just so inspiring that you are looking at yourself as like the number one way to go, the number one person to take care of. And then once that foundation is solid, then you can take care of the rest.
It took 7 years, but I'm glad.
That's amazing. So I'm curious, obviously you had such a colorful and wonderful journey. Is there any kind of story or moment or experience that you feel has helped, shape who you are today?
Um, I think again, I'll go back to knowing yourself better. I don't think I knew, and I would say a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't know why they're doing it. Just because the entrepreneur entrepreneurship has been labeled as something very cool and you're your own boss, you have your freedom. It really depends on your situation as well. I honestly think I was very lucky to start when I was a lot younger, 7 years ago, and I didn't have responsibilities as, let's say, a man would have to be the provider and of the family. So I think I did have, I was lucky in some areas, but also it is very challenging. I did have a lot of rejections on why do you want to do it. And I think also coming from a Pakistani traditional family, it's just that, get married, have your own life, and why do you want to go through all of that stress? Why do you want to build something up like that? Um, and I think it's also a very Arab culture where, you're either a doctor or an engineer, like back in the days. And I think we're a generation that grew up with that mindset, or a teacher. So I think I was the first one in my family to actually go into marketing and advertising. So very challenging. But when I look back and I have my younger cousins looking up to me now today and asking how they can do it, I have a lot of friends in my circle who do want to start their businesses, and some of them have successful businesses today as well. So it makes me really proud when I look back at the journey.
That is beautiful. And speaking of kind of tapping into younger audiences, talk to me a little bit more about MKV creators and what that's all about.
I can talk about MKV creators all day. I'm really passionate about it. So it's basically a team of creators from the GCC region, mainly UAE and Saudi. If you go to our website, mkvdigital.com, you can apply as a creator. The reason we came up with something like MKV creators is because we saw a rising demand from clients as well, where brands want to work with influencers, but there's still, I think there are some brands who are very hesitant to work with influencers because they don't want their products to be super promotional, especially when it comes to, let's say, healthcare or medical field. You cannot promote those things and say that this is good for you, and you have to, even if it's a pain management brand, right? So I think we saw that there is that kind of challenge, but also there is challenge on telling authentic stories in our field. We don't want everything to be paid. We want authentic content to be created. And I think back in the days, when you talk about authentic content, it would be your designs and animations and your graphics and so on. You would have one-off campaign, maybe during Ramadan or some of your biggest events where you create a storytelling approach. Today, the way content is, there are stories every single day. The way users or audience behavior is, if you don't catch the attention within the first few seconds, and let's say your hook or your first 3 seconds, the audience loses the attention. What the audience is demanding is authentic storytelling content, which resonates with them. And when we look at the audience, Gen Z and millennials, and especially Gen Z, I would say, is the audience that actually gets these platforms and they know what kind of stories to tell. So it doesn't require your full-fledged strategy. You can have your full-fledged strategy in which a part of it is basically talking about the storytelling approach, talking about creating UGC content, sharing experiences. You have a skincare brand, you want someone to actually use it. So will you be more inclined to actually buy a product or a service if you just look at a graphic post? You'll be more inclined to make that purchase when you see someone who looks like you, someone who talks like you, someone who's using the product like you would, or taking the service that you would. So something that resonates with the audience. And I think at the same time, it is giving Gen Z or even people who are in universities or who want part-time job or even a full-time job. So we have full-time and part-time MKV creators. They can show their skills and expertise in something that they're passionate about, and which is creating content. Look at any Gen Zer today; they all want to become content creators. So I think it's a beautiful opportunity for creators to connect with brands and for the users of those brands to actually look at content that resonates with them.
That is so cool. Like I never thought about it that way until you actually said and broke it down like that. The fact that like it does work much better when you actually have someone, like you said, trialing a beauty product, for example, and to know that it's not something that's just like a paid or sponsored ad, but somebody is actually who looks like you, sounds like you, talks like you feel much more associated with that person and you feel much more engaged with that person. So it's a very cool concept that you've created, and I'm sure
Thank you.
people will be running to your website now to apply. But this does bring me to my final question for you today, Asiya. Having said everything that you've said today with all the agency expertise that you have, the award-winning expertise that you have, what is one final word of advice you have for listeners?
If I have to give one advice, I think it would be, even when you talk about award-winning work, one of the biggest things that I've learned as an entrepreneur is that um, you cannot go very far if you go alone. So even if we talk about our award-winning work, there are a lot of partner agencies that are involved. There are a lot of people in the industry who have years of experience doing like amazing work as well. So I think for an entrepreneur, I would always say learn from people, collaborate with people as well. It's as a team, and I never see anyone as a competition. But I think if I have to also talk about something which I realized when I got into entrepreneurship is that, you know how entrepreneurship is made very cool. And I don't think a lot of people have true entrepreneurial spirit as well, where they're just like, no one's ever happy as a human, right? So if you have a 9 to 6 and you're happy with it, I would say stick to it. But if you're not, and if you're really a true entrepreneur and you have that entrepreneurial spirit, you're 100% in it to make a real difference, then choose entrepreneurship. Collaborate with people, be a nice human being, but do not be a doormat for others to walk over you at the same time. So be prepared, have a purpose, and it could be making more money. You know, your purpose could be, I want to make money, more money. But that comes with a lot to lose and sacrifices as well, depending on how your life is. And like I said, I feel like I've been lucky because I didn't have those many responsibilities, or I could just, you know, the next day I could just start my agency and be like, okay, let me just test it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So don't do it because it is labeled as cool or you think you will have more freedom. Do it because you're actually making a difference, and it could be making a difference in your own life. So I think that's what I would say to someone who wants to become an entrepreneur.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I love that. I am here for it. I support it. And honestly, I could not have had a better guest on the show to share that message. Thank you so much, Essia.
Thank you so much, Sarah. You've been very sweet, and I wish you all the best as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.